And here we go. The cancer of civilization, jihad, is affecting you whether you know it or not. Okay, I got the wrong. The joy of starting the wrong things. All right. And just a second, and I'll have this up. This is the joy of getting everything. Here we go. Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today, I have with me Dr. Andrew Harrod, and we're going to be talking about jihadis being supported by college professors and protesters. Dr. Andrew Harrod wrote an excellent article, which we're going to be discussing. But as this is a Christian show, Christian news show, I will always start with the scriptures, and starting with Matthew 5:1-2 today. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into the mountain. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying. So here's my thoughts on it. He says, you're probably wondering why I stopped there. Why? Because we're about to talk about Beatitudes. This is just the introduction, but it's here. One of the most awesome points of this part of the story hit me. As a young college student studying the Bible, I found Dietrich Bonhoeffer's book, The Cost of Discipleship, and read his introduction to this, and my whole world changed. All of my little bit of life up to that point, not one person had mentioned that this Sermon on the Mount was not given to the masses, but only to his disciples. Jesus had left the multitudes and went up to a mountain. And when his disciples came unto him, he opened his mouth and taught them. This message, this sermon was for those who are disciples. It was not for those who turn the switch off and on the moment they leave the church. It was for those whose lives are the embodiments of Christ. Why did this hit me so? To me, it changed the meaning of the message. It made it more focused. The audience changed from hundreds, maybe even thousands, to just 12 at the most. And this is huge. This message was to those who knew him. This message was to those who not only knew him, but lived a life dedicated to him. You'll hear political leaders, corporate leaders, business consultants, even pagans cite the Beatitudes as examples of how you should be and how you should live. That's not accurate, following message from them, because, again, this was a message to Christ's disciples. This message is not a message to pretenders who show up at church just because it's the right thing to do. It's a message for Christians. Think about it. If you're one of them, this Sermon on the Mount has a special message for you. Dear Lord Jesus, you're the one who saved me. You gave your life that I might have life. You took my sins, our sins upon yourself, that we might be offered a chance to become yours. Lord, I'm learning that you even gave a special message just to us who believe, just to us who know what you've done for us. Lord, help us to live such a life as an example of who you are and your love. In your name, Lord Jesus, amen. Now, today I have Dr. Andrew Harrod, and we're having technical difficulties, so I have him on my phone. Can you hear? Yes, indeed. Yes. Okay. That's not very loud. Can you get it louder or no? Let me see if I can. It's almost muted. Do you have I think that might have been the whole issue. Can you just use your phone by your hand? Will that work? And just take the headset off. Is that better? I think you need to. I don't know what's going on. It's like very, very weak. Can anybody hear? I can hear you fine. Can you hear me now? Barely. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. Somehow your mic is like muted. I don't know how to improve it by a phone. And I've got this all the way up. I'm going to ask the people in the audience, can everybody hear Dr. Andrew Harrod? If you can, please let me know. Can you hear me? Can you talk a little louder? That's the only thing I'm going to have to ask, I guess. Can you hear me now? I'm barely able to hear. It's the same. Wow. Dr. Andrew Harrod is one of these geniuses that I do want to, maybe we can somehow get lucky and get this fixed. We'll just have to pray real hard. Let me explain why I have him joining us first. Is Dr. Andrew Harrod is one of the hosts, along with Eric and myself, on BTR, on Blog Talk Radio, with the Global Patriot Radio Network. And he wrote an article that it just, what I call, knocks it out of the park. And for those who don't live in America or North or Canada, knocking out of the park is hitting a home run in baseball. This was just, it just hit me so well, because my second book is Civilization, Jihad, and the Myth of Modern Islam. I wrote about how Islamic professors who were tied to the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrated colleges and universities across North America in the 1960s. And Dr. Harrod's article points out how they feel free to openly support convicted jihadis currently serving time. Think about that, currently serving time. So Dr. Andrew Harrod, your article starts by quoting Nada Dibas, the prisoner and family support coordinator of the Coalition for Civil Freedoms, during a webinar entitled Ramadan Behind Bars. Ms. Dibas said, "If you are supporting our prisoners, you are supporting some of the best people on the planet." I'm hoping that sound works now. So, Dr. Harrod, can you please tell us more about the Coalition for Civil Freedoms and Nada Dibas? Let me see if there's anything. Hold on a second. Let me see if there's anything else I can do to increase the sound. This is just blowing my mind. All right.
Is there something that can you hear me fine, Paul?
Yes.
This is Eric. Okay, then it's probably got to be something with Dr. Harris.
Yeah.
Sorry to point
that
out.
I
Captain Obvious here. My fault.
Perhaps the mobile is too low. Is your battery strong enough? This is the first we've had this issue. Okay. I can barely hear you on the phone. and I have the sound all the way up. So I wish
can
I could
barely hear
figure
him.
out what else.
I can't make out any words. I can't make out any words that he's saying at all.
Oh, wow. Ah, one more. You know what? We'll try one more thing. Not sure how it'll work, but can you go to can you call BTR, and we'll see if it works any better from there. And call in the guest line, on the call-in line, and we'll see if I can make that work. Yeah, on the guest line. Oh, the joy of technology.
Yeah, I think if he calls in there, Paul, I think you're probably going to lose the volume or the sound through StreamYard.
I'm curious. I haven't tried it.
Neither have I, but I'm this is conjecture, knowing BTR and all the challenges that go along with that.
We'll see. My biggest issue is I have to keep moving the mic back and forth because my speaker is away from. I'm not wearing a headset because my speaker is away from my mic, and it's a directional mic. So we will see. I'm just gonna, as soon as I can see him logged into BTR, just you have to call into BTR onto the phone number there. There we go. All right. Can you hear me, Dr. Harrod?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, that's better. So, okay. All right, hold on just a second. Let me get this testing a little bit. All right. And let me I can at least raise the volume this way. Okay, so Dr. Harrod, can you answer my question then? I know everybody heard my question. You heard it? It's question number 1 that I sent you?
Yes, indeed. Well, I wrote
Well, hold on a second. Can everybody hear him now?
I can hear him, but there's a delay between the video and the voice. But
yes,
we'll live with it as long as we can hear him. That's all we really need to do. He's got a pretty face and all, but we don't need to have that towards his credibility.
All right. So, Dr. Harrod, please tell us the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Yes, well, I wrote an article at the American Spectator as a Campus Watch fellow for the Middle East Forum, analyzing ongoing presentations in academia in the field of Middle East studies and looking for anti-Western, anti-Israeli propaganda, monitoring those trends. And this particular article dealt with the Coalition for Civil Freedoms, which, as it turns out, was founded by Professor Jonathan Brown, who is a Georgetown University professor, been a longtime associate with the Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding there at Georgetown University. Was for a long time there the director of the ACMCU, as it's known, institution at Georgetown University, and is still a professor there. And he founded this Coalition for Civil Freedoms, as he stated in the presentation online in a webinar in the basement of his home, precisely at the time when his father-in-law, Samuel al-Arian, was under house arrest, and ultimately in 2015, he was deported to Turkey as part of a conviction for material support for terrorism, namely for Palestinian Islamic Jihad. This entire coalition for civil freedoms in this presentation, starting out with a member of its staff, Nada Dabas, if I'm saying that correctly, as it's quoted in the article, was talking about how the people that this Coalition for Civil Freedoms, CCF, supports are really just great people, the best of people. And yet you look at the records, they're all like Jonathan Brown's father-in-law, Samuel al-Arian. You know, the people convicted on terrorism charges, and there's really no doubt about it. The evidence is quite clear, and yet here you have a professor at Georgetown University alongside other people like Zara Billu, the San Francisco chapter leader of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, promoting these individuals as just wrongfully convicted, really fine folks. It's just astonishing how people in such prominent positions. I mean, Zara Billu, of course, has made a name for herself as being a really rabidly anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic individual. Who brought a lot of controversy to CARE. This was actually a Hamas front group, and is one of the partners in this coalition for civil freedoms. So it's really astonishing how people of such elevated backgrounds, prominent positions in the United States, like at Georgetown University, can just sort of out of whole cloth invent these lies, these narratives about people convicted on terrorism charges, serving time in American prisons.
All right. So, Dr. Harrod, what explains the reasoning behind supporting convicted terrorists?
Well, it just seems to me like they want to just whitewash it and just really put up a propaganda front. I mean, I guess you could compare it to there's throughout the decades and still today there are people who would claim that, for example, the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg weren't really Soviet spies, therefore did not deserve to be executed in 1953 under the Espionage Act for spying for the Soviet Union, helping facilitate the transmission of atomic bomb secrets from the Manhattan Project during World War II to the Soviets. All of this Soviet espionage that helped the Soviet Union so quickly acquire a nuclear weapon already in 1949, just 4 years after America had tested and then used its nuclear weapons in World War II against Japan. I guess you could say it's just sort of like a cult-like behavior. That people have these political cults. They either believe it themselves or they want other people to believe it. They're just simply cynical, but just inventing narratives out of whole cloth that people are innocent when all evidence proves that they're not. They're rightfully convicted. I mean, one individual discussed in this webinar was former police officer Nicholas Young, and her sister joined the panel and is a member of this Coalition for Civil Freedoms. The evidence about this Washington D.C. police officer is clear. I mean, he was convicted in a sort of FBI sting operation of someone posing, asking for aid for the Islamic State, and this police officer offered to give aid, and he had previously traveled to Libya to fight with Jihadis there in the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, and had associated with a person who was a supporter of al-Shabaab.
Wow.
And really had kind of a disturbing life. He had talked about he had promoted like Nazi insignia in his youth and so forth. There's just no evidence to suggest that such a person is somehow innocent, not guilty, or that the FBI had no reason for going after him, having him arrested and put him in jail.
Wow. Now, is there a connection between the Coalition for Civil Freedoms that calls themselves CCF and any known terrorist entities that operate legally in the United States, like Hamas in America, otherwise known as CARE, the Council on American-Islamic Relations?
Well, as I indicated, CARE is one of the coalition members. If you go to their website, you'll see CARE listed there. Or I believe it's specifically the Florida chapter of CARE, as indicated in the article. So there are CARE links, which again, as you indicated, is this Hamas front in the United States, formed in 1994 out of people who had been promoting Hamas interests, Hamas propaganda here in the United States. You have other groups like the National Lawyers Guild, this far left organization, radical organization, really has communist roots going back to the 1930s. That is also a member of this coalition. I'm trying to remember the other members. I believe also the Council for CCR I believe Council for Constitutional Rights, another far left organization. I believe also, if I recall correctly, American-Muslims for Palestine is associated. So, you can simply go to their website and they're all prominently displayed there. A real potpourri here of radical far left and pro-jihadist front groups.
One of the things that I don't know if you saw this today. In fact, I just got this article in my news in my mail today, and it's just a little bit before the show came on, and it's Islamism.news, and it's by Dexter Van Zyl. I think it's one of your colleagues at MEF. He wrote an article titled "A Prominent American Imam Promotes Jihad," and I mean, I think you started a firestorm, because this article also talks about the Coalition for Civil Freedoms. He named Omar Suleiman, a Texas imam who gave an opening prayer for a session of the House of Representatives in the United States. Think about that. He encouraged his followers to donate to an organization that advocates for convicted terrorists, and that is the CCF that you're talking about. I didn't know if you were familiar with that, and I think that your opening this is going to start a firestorm. Benjamin Baird apparently has written something about him, but the CCF is just being... I had no idea. I had not heard of CCF before, so I'm thankful that you and others are exposing this. Do we know?
Oh, I hadn't followed that. Oh, yeah, I hadn't followed that specifically. Dexter Van Zyl is now at the Middle East Forum. He had the focus on Western Islamism project. I didn't realize that Omar Suleiman is of course, a well-known, as you indicated, he's based now in Texas, Texas-based imam, and had given this invocation at Congress, the House of Representatives. Very controversial, given his, he has his own radical background, a string of anti-Israel statements and so forth. So that's interesting. I hadn't followed the recent writings of Dexter, whom I know and previously worked for CAMRA, the Committee on Accuracy and Middle East Reporting in America, as their Christian relations head of Christian media there. But I didn't realize he had also had covered a linkage with the Coalition for Civil Freedoms with Omar Suleiman. I mean, of course, it doesn't surprise me that those would be the kind of people that associate with each other. I mean, I as well have not really been aware of this CCF before. This is the first time that this has really sort of come up on my radar with this webinar involving Jonathan Brown, a person I've covered extensively for Campus Watch at the Middle East Forum. So for me as well, what's interesting finding about this and learning how Brown talked about his own personal involvement with this foundation, given his father-in-law undergoing being convicted for material support for terrorism. Again, he's also another case where people like Jonathan Brown will say, oh, he's innocent and, he is wrongfully prosecuted. And then at CCF, precisely the executive director is his sister-in-law, Leila al-Arian. His wife is Lila al-Arian, and the sister of Lila is Leila, who heads up the CCF. So this is kind of an all-in-the-family operation, you might say. And indeed, it's been noted by others that, like the Investigative Project on Terrorism and so forth, that Brown has these rather sort of a net of nefarious connections through his father and his wife and his sister-in-law. So if you're going to Georgetown and you're taking a class with Jonathan Brown, you might want to sort of know his background and perspective here.
Wow, I didn't realize. I mean, I know I read the article, but I didn't even think about Leila al-Arian being the connection point. I don't know how many people understand how dangerous Samuel al-Arian is. I have a question for you now that I hadn't thought of. Given that we are now seeing professors come out and support terrorists and convicted jihadis, do you think professors now should get a security check background before they start to teach? Because this is dangerous to all of America, that you would get people who are supporting jihadis in these positions of academic power.
Well, the only security checks we have, are if you're going into the government and you're going to deal with any sort of classified information, confidential information. The FBI, Foreign Service, State Department, CIA. I mean, I've gone through security checks, just for doing decades ago, internships for the State Department. You have a background check and so forth. I mean, that doesn't involve the private sector of, like a private university or any university for that matter. There's no security check for, whatever free speech you want to engage in, whatever book you want to publish, or, that would, of course, involve all sorts of constitutional issues about infringing a person's free speech. But certainly, if you're going to any university or for that matter, reading a book or whatever, you should know, the person you're dealing with, the person you're talking to, or you're taking a class from, and just understand what kind of background they have, what sort of perspective they have, what they, might be hiding, if they're going to deal honestly with you. I mean, particularly here in the case of Jonathan Brown, you got a guy who's just, just going along making up fairy tales, really, about individuals who are have been convicted and served time, or have served time, or are serving time in federal prison for support of terrorism. Another individual who was on the panel was this Ahmed Abdel Sattar, who had been convicted way back in 2000 or so for being an associate of the blind sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, the blind sheikh, who the one who had been involved with orchestrating and inspiring the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. And he had been involved with him and had helped put out like a fatwa saying that attacks on Jews would be justified and so forth. And so he was convicted for his support of terrorism with Omar Abdul Rahman. Again, there's no real. I mean, no one's come forward with any sort of evidence to suggest that, somehow, the conviction is a wrong conviction, or, I don't know, evidence was forged or something, or, the jury got it wrong or something. These are people just out of whole cloth, like Jonathan Brown, or just simply going forth and concocting just some alternative reality that these people are innocent. So if you're going to go to Georgetown University, you got to wonder if you ever take a class with this guy. I mean, what credibility does he have? How can you trust him? I mean, additionally, he's also a supporter of boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS against Israel. Real strident hater of Israel. As is, of course, his wife, who's a reporter for Al Jazeera in Qatar, this key Gulf state sheikhdom that is a big supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood. For me, I just wouldn't pay money to take a class from a person like that, or if I were to ever read their books, I'd always be very, very skeptical. You just can't trust a person like that who enters into such an ideological fantasy world.
As someone who is taught in a school, public school, I have to go through an FBI check. And I don't believe, unless something has changed, that college professors have to do that, because they're not dealing with small children. But I'm concerned that we have, I mean, they couldn't pass a security check, these familial connections to jihadis, convicted jihadis, convicted in the United States. They could not pass that. That's just kind of mind-blowing. in Rochester, New York, we just had a cop killer speak, and that person had similar type organization supporting them, and they spoke at SUNY Brockport. I have issues with this. I did not go because I did not. I mean, I was going to go and record this, and I kept debating in my head, if I go, am I even showing up? Is that I was having some real serious difficulties with my ethics about showing up to go to this. But is there anything you think that can be done to fight against organizations that exist like this? That's, I guess, the big question. Is there any solution that you see to stopping the work of these type of organizations?
Well, I guess the only thing you can do is to expose them. I mean, we of course live in a free society, and America is, famously known for really prizing individual liberty. And, we have neo-Nazis or KKK people running around with their organizations. And we have strict limits on any sort of restriction of free speech. I mean, that's an interesting thing that you bring up, though, that you went through a background check to teach at a high school. I guess I can understand that there, you said it was with the FBI or was it with local police? I mean, I can understand that you go through a background check to see, do you have any history of violence or something like that? Well, of course, now people are all talking about, sexual behavior, whether you're molesting kids or anything, which has actually been a significant problem with public school teachers. That would be different from specifically a background check that you might go to the government. I mean, in your case, they'd be looking for any sort of sign of criminal behavior, violence. In the case of a background check with the government, that might also involve additionally factors of, what's your ideology? I mean, in your case, it would be pretty limited to just, any sort of tendency towards criminal behavior, not, whatever views you have. But of course, there again, there's an issue of, I don't know, if you start teaching something outrageous at school, maybe, the parents will demand that you get fired for, maybe you should be fired depending on what you advocate. But I guess for professors in academia, I guess one thing is to just, we need increasing scrutiny about what we're doing with public monies in academia. For example, recently there's been a letter written to the government that we no longer give federal funds under the provisions for Middle East studies, Title VI, if I recall, that it's called, that was set up back in the 1960s or so to fund study programs in the Middle East, languages and so forth. I mean, this was back in the time of the Cold War, and the idea was, we need, for national security purposes, we need to educate people who can understand these regions of the world. And the whole controversy that's arisen now is that with modern academia, you just get all these anti-American, anti-Israel people who, have really no intent of serving any American interests. And now all these federal funds are just kind of a slush fund for them. It's kind of, they can just have their great academic adventure with it. I mean, that's precisely why the Middle East Forum has Campus Watch to sort of critique, what's really going on in academia. But there's been a recent initiative with this Middle East Studies Association. They passed a resolution say they would support boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. And so you've had, for example, a wave of universities and institutions dropping out of MESA, this Middle East Studies Association, their affiliation, because it's become so radical and anti-Israel, anti-American. Then there's this move that letter was written that the government should not give any funds to any, academic institution that supports BDS against Israel. And that's clearly an infringement of scholarship standards. I mean, if you want to engage in scholarship about the Middle East or the world at large, for that matter, Israel's a big player. And I mean, Israel's a leading center of scholarship and research. I mean, how can you, want to be a scholar and not associated with Israel? It's a big player worldwide in all sorts of fields. And so there again is a question of integrity. Why would you ever want to learn from someone who's going to blackball, have such bigotry against Israel? So I think there, we have to really examine what are we paying for in academia with our funds. I mean, now if we have this controversy that the students want to have their loans forgiven, right? I mean, that's a lot of cash right there. All the student debt issue. Well, we ought to start asking, well, what did you pay that money for? Did you go to Georgetown University and just listen to Jonathan Brown talk about how all these pro-jihadist individuals are all innocent in prisons, and Israel's an evil apartheid state and we should boycott it? I mean, if that's what you did, I don't really want to forgive your loan. Okay, I don't want to. In fact, I wish we hadn't even given you a loan in the first place. I mean, it just sounds like that's just money down the toilet. So I think we need a broader public scrutiny of what's going on, and I mean that's really in a lot of levels. And K through 12, this whole groom debate, what's going on with curriculum, and what Governor Rick DeSantis is doing in Florida, reviewing curricula there. Critical race theory, all this. I mean, and we got to really start looking at just what's going on ideologically in the school system, both K through 12 and then the wider academia. And what are we paying for here? I mean, are we getting our money's worth? Is this serving our interests? Is it serving my interest? Is it serving your interest? What are we doing?
So I one of the articles I had to share today, this will kind of it's along those same lines. It's just for an after school club, and I actually had to go look at the original source to see if this was true. And I'm just gonna share my screen. This is I have to laugh when I think about this, because I would never have thought that. Now, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of in my wildest dreams that this was true. And so I'm just going to share my screen so you can see. This comes from. Oh, now don't tell me it's gone. All right. And what happened here? Okay. Okay, here we go. Can you see this? After school Satan Club denied by Northern York School Board. We're talking about ideologies, and the residents denied it. The school board denied. It was an 8-1 vote by the school board, and as a result, the entire crowd erupts in an applause and thank you. And you're right. We have to start being concerned about ideology and what's being taught in K, not only K through 12, but in the larger forum. Dr. Harrod, I want to say thank you for joining us. Eric, did you have any questions for him? No.
I'm sorry, Paul. I can't talk right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Can you tell everybody how they can support your work and how they can follow you as well?
Well, a Campus Watch fellow at the Middle East Forum, so you can support the Middle East Forum. You can follow me there. If you simply go to the Middle East Forum website and input my name, you'll see all sorts of articles come up. I'm also a contributor at Jihad Watch, Robert Spencer's project at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, his Jihad Watch monitoring global jihadist issues involving Sharia around the world, as well as now he's expanded that with his left column. He often writes about, as we're talking about here, issues involving the political left. So now he has not just Jihad Watch, but his left column to issues that sort of often come together in what's been called this Red-Green Alliance. So I'm a contributor
Yes.
there. You can follow me there and support Jihad Watch as well. I'm also, as you know, a fellow host with at Global Patriot Radio. There I have every Friday my podcast, Conservative Casual Friday. I'll have one tomorrow, interviewing a Catholic author, Bear Wozniak, about his book on surfing and sort of a autobiographical work looking at his life in the intersection of his surfing life, going on the waves, and theology. It's actually a very interesting book. So you can listen to that, and you can follow all my other writings are available at really all sorts of places: Breitbart, Daily Caller, Daily Wire, National Interest, Capital Research Center. I mean, if you simply Google my name, a lot of stuff will come up, and you can follow me, and you'll have a lot to read. So, and also, of course, on Twitter at AE Harrod on Twitter, you can follow me, and Facebook as well.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Dr. Harrod. I hope to have you back soon. It's been an honor to have you, and I always do enjoy reading your work. So please keep up the great research. I think you started a firestorm on CCF. Keep it up.
Well, I hope so. I didn't get the word out. Well, I always enjoy coming on your show and enjoy talking to you. It's always find the things you bring up as well interesting. So it's always good to talk with you. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Bye. God bless. All right.
God bless.
All right. You never know. You never know when you're preparing for a show. Like, I just had these articles. I mean, 5 minutes, about 5 or 10 minutes before the show started, I got sent this other article, which I mentioned a little while ago, by Dexter Van Zyl, and it covers the same thing and much of what Dr. Harrod discussed. And I was shocked that it mentioned CCF. And here I am reading it, and I'll be honest, it just skipped my brain that we were talking about Lena, al-Arian, and we were talking about Aliyah and Lena. It just skipped my brain, even though I had read Dr. Harrod's article. It didn't hit me, and I don't know why, and I apologize that I didn't catch it. These articles that expose this stuff, connections to convicted terrorists, are working in possibly your local college. I'm concerned about that. I'm extremely concerned. What's happening should not be, we should not be, what's the right way to put this? We should not allow convicted people who are related to convicted terrorists these close connections to convicted terrorists to have influence over children. And what do I mean by children? I'm even going up to the 20s, okay? In your 20s, you're still highly influential. People can easily influence those people, and that's problematic. So let me get into I think this next piece I have I want to talk about. Now, this is Ramadan, and I know Eric addressed the Muslim riots in Sweden, and they were influenced by Rasmus Paludan, who was going around burning Qurans. Now, Rasmus Paludan was slated to go to some areas to burn Qurans. So what happened in those areas before he even showed up? They started rioting in the streets and burning things like people, like cars, and turning, and they do. It's unfortunately true that this happens more often than Rasmussen shows up. But I actually know and have met Rasmus Paludan, and I was present during an interview, which my friend who goes by the moniker Vlad Tepes blog did an interview, and I wanted to share a portion of that interview. You can find this interview on 3speak.tv. 3speak. It's the number 3 speak.tv, and take a look at the work there. Vlad Tepes blog's work is outstanding. But I want you to think about this guy. He's probably not my favorite choice of people but I think this interview is actually important. Now, most people don't have the chance to know who Rasmus is, so I thought I would introduce him to you in this format. Now, we were in Canada in a meeting together. This is one of the times I met Brad Johnson. So let me just share this interview with you, and I think it'll surprise you.
Rasmus Paludan, political leader of the Danish Hardline Party, which received 1.8% of the popular vote at the recent parliamentary elections in Denmark, also journalist for the Voice of Freedom, and many, many other things, but at least for now, a very, very threatened political leader in Denmark under 24-hour protection by the Danish Intelligence Security Service, because a lot of Muslims from many, many different cultures and countries very, very much want to kill me. I am now in Canada among good North American friends in what we could call the libertarian, patriotic, decent lover of Western civilization movement. And my good friend Ned May from America is with me. I don't want to do your introduction, so you want to talk about yourself a bit?
I run the blog Gates of Vienna as Baron Bodicing. Really all I have to say.
So, you started out essentially as an activist trying to raise awareness about the issues of mass importations of Muslims into what was formerly a fairly homogenous Danish population, and the changes it had and the impact it had on Danish culture and crime and so on and so on. And then you ran for parliament and just missed it by just a fraction. Do you want to tell us just a bit about that evolution and actually what happened with the election and where that's left you where you are now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true that I was very concerned about mass Muslim immigration to Denmark. Not only with mass Muslim immigration to Denmark, generally with immigration to Denmark, because if you look apart from Western European countries and maybe most European countries and the countries where the offspring of those people live, that would be Canada, North America generally, and Australia and New Zealand. If you look away from those countries, and a certain migration from those countries would work in Denmark, but as far as migration from other countries than those, that is bound to fail for the most part. And that is a particular concern when most of those migrants are from North Africa or the Middle East or Pakistan or Afghanistan, because those people in particular are unable and unwilling to function in harmony with Danes in Danish society. So they hate what we have as far as our culture. They like our money a lot. And also, they don't have the cognitive skills or the education needed to function in Denmark. So that is a concern, and my political involvement in trying to rectify this problem began in the autumn of 2015 when I was teaching part-time. I'm a lawyer by trade, and I was teaching part-time at university, teaching law students. And at some time during that period in the autumn of 15, I posted a link to article by the Gatestone Institute where they wrote about a mass rise in rape being committed in Europe by Muslim migrants. Now, 2015 is also the year of the migration crisis, where many European countries let many non-refugee Muslims enter their countries.
I think it's when Angela Merkel put ads on TV in different Muslim countries in North Africa.
Angela Merkel famously said, "Wir schaffen das," which means we'll fix it. And of course, that was the worst prediction ever stated by anybody in the world, because that's not what happened. Instead, we now have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of German boys and girls being demeaned and attacked and raped by Muslims in Germany. But
and now she says it doesn't matter, now they're here. That's it.
It's like a sequel to a horror film.
I think over time it's not unlikely that Angela Merkel will find a place next to Hitler in Germans that history will judge very harshly. But I wrote a comment on Facebook when I posted that article from Gatestone Institute on my personal profile, and I wrote basically, if you're a Muslim rapist, you shouldn't be allowed to breathe the same air as people of the European Union. Now, what that means, obviously, is that we shouldn't have Muslim rapists in Europe. We shouldn't have any rapists in Europe, but if we have indigenous rapists, that's our problem. We shouldn't import them. That meant that several students filed a complaint against me with the dean of the university law school, because they thought, if you have such outrageous extremist views like Rasmus, you shouldn't be allowed to teach law students. Now, this wasn't something I'd stated during teaching. I wouldn't do that. I was completely objective and neutral political-wise when I was teaching. This was something I wrote on my personal Facebook page profile. So of course that complaint didn't lead to anything, but it did lead to me becoming very worried. And so I started attending a few meetings at the Free Press Society in Denmark in the autumn of 15, and then in January 16 I decided to take the big leap, so to speak, and that's attending a Danish Pegida for Freedom rally. Now, once you do that, it's like the paste out of the tube. You can't put it back in. So once you've attended just one of those, you'll have your picture taken by Antifa and others, and that's that. Then you've positioned yourself somewhere that you can never go back from. Now, I was willing to do that, and that speaks to the extent of my worry, which was very great. So I did that during 16. I went to every rally, every protest that the Danish Pegida had, and eventually on the 1st of October 16, they asked me to make a speech at one of their protests, and that's what I did. And that was what's been dubbed the Rivers of Blood speech, because I said, eventually, if this continues, we'll have a civil war, because the Muslims will want to enforce their dominance with weapons, and we'll have to fight them. And if that happens, I hope that our streets and our alleys will turn into rivers of blood, the bloods of our enemies. I'm very happy about that. Now, certainly, if you know what warfare is, you're aware that a very important part of warfare is killing your enemy. So if you're at war, there's really nothing bad about wishing that the blood of the enemy is in the alleys and streets, but for Danes it's a bit dramatic. So some people hated that speech, but other people liked it a lot, and also I think they liked the fact that I didn't seem very afraid. I seemed quite on topic and determined. So the New Right Party local chapter in Copenhagen asked me to run for a municipal office in January 17, and this was picked up by the Antifa, who asked the national committee of the New Right Party, is this really who you want running? I mean, someone who's talking about blood in the streets? And they said, oh no, we think Muslim is fine as long as you're just Muslim in your home or not bothering people. You can be all the Muslim you want, that's fine. And then I had a conversation with the New Right Party leadership, and I said, well, that's not fine, that's terrible. Muslim in Denmark is not fine. It's very bad. We don't want Muslims in Denmark at all. And then we agreed that the New Right Party was not for me because my politics were not in compliance with their politics. I'm very, very, very glad that happened. Now, during January of 17, I also started the Voice of Freedom, Frihedens Stemme, which is kind of a citizen journalist media, also a YouTube channel, where I tried to find out who these Antifa people were, because they had a tendency to commit violence, and they also wrecked my office, and there were no consequences, obviously, to this. I mean, they could do this stuff and nothing happened. So I tried to document this.
Just like Antifa everywhere else in the world.
Yes. And this went on through 17, and then I eventually decided with others that on the 15th of July 17, we would announce the creation of Stram Kurs, in English, hard line, the hard line party. And of course, the hard line is a hard line towards migration, because we want a resettlement. We want to send the people back to where they come from or where they originate. And that's what we did. We announced the party, and we ran very unsuccessfully in the 17 elections because nobody knew who we were. So you don't get any votes then. Of course, the media certainly weren't going to write anything about us because the Danish media are mostly hypocrites and socialists and cultural Marxists and traitors. We don't like those so much, but they hate patriots. They don't like that at all. And then we kept doing our different kinds of protests against Antifa during the beginning of 18, this last year. And then eventually we had a meeting and it was kind of decided that Antifa is not the real enemy here and nobody cares. Outside of Copenhagen, nobody cares about Antifa. No, the real problem is the Muslims in Denmark. Of course, those that are really to blame are the people who let the Muslims in, but at least we can focus on the symptoms, and the symptoms of the problem is the behavior of the Muslims in Denmark. The real cause of the problem is the people letting Muslims in, but we'll get to that. So we decided that's better to do that, and we decided to do kind of a copy of the Lawrence Southern Tommy Robinson thing they did in Luton, where they said Allah is a very transsexual faggot and it's a lot of fun. And they weren't allowed to do that for very many minutes. So we wanted to do that, and we wanted to say Allah is very gay. He likes to have gay sex and so forth. And then I had a visit from the Danish Intelligence and Security Service, and they said, well, you know, we're not telling you what to do or not to do. We're not allowed to do that, but we have to advise you of the possible consequences. And if you do that, you might very well be killed. And I said, well, your job is to protect a politician from being killed, so you should do your freaking job. And they said, well, we try to do that, but we can't protect you from something we don't know about, so there's a risk with anything. And so we scaled down a little bit on our flyers for the 20th of April event in Copenhagen. So instead, we just had this flyer with Allah that said, gay sex is good, and also the favorite color of Muslims is the color of the rainbow, something like that. I think the message was not that clear, but certainly if a Muslim was to read the pamphlet, he could see that it wasn't a big fan of Muslims that had written this. So I stood there. In the beginning, there were no police, but they came eventually because, of course, local Muslims were very upset that I said, do you know what the favorite color of Muslims are? I know, it's the homo color. and then I had this rainbow coloring.
I remember when you did that.
Yes, and that video attracted 100,000 views. Now that was a lot for us. That was way more than we used to get. So I figured this works pretty good. I mean, it's right on topic as to our politics, but also it's interesting to see. We say that many Muslims have no self-control. They have no temperance. One of the virtues is temperance. They have none of this because they're not Christians. They come from an honor culture, so what they do have is an imitation of the pedophile Muhammad, and that imitation is no self-control, a great amount of aggression and anger, and a great amount of violence. That's what they do have because it's their divine duty to imitate the Prophet Muhammad. So let's see whether we can get some interesting documentation about what our Muslims in Denmark really like when you lawfully say something that displeases them. And we began doing that in July 18, and that was really successful because they did exactly what I would have assumed they would do. To the letter, they did just that. They freaked out, they yelled slurs, and they tried to hit me and spit at me and kick me and attack me in many ways. Now that happened again and again and again and again. And we kept doing that because, you know, we're just showing the truth as the truth is. It happens to benefit us politically, but we don't mind. So we did that. And we did that all of autumn of 18, and the media, we became very popular on YouTube, mostly by kids and young people, and many of them just because it was good entertainment, but many also because all my teachers are saying Muslims are just as good and nice as other people, but I know that when they always hit me and demean me, that's not true. And the only politician in Denmark who says that is Rasmus. All the other people are saying that's not true, but Rasmus says, yes, when you're a Muslim and you spit and rape and kill, you're a bad person. You're less good. You're less worth than Danes are. And that was very new to many kids, and they were like, this is great. I've been living shit lives being hit by Muslims every day, and now there's one person who's saying it like it is. So that was pretty good, but mainstream media didn't really cover us because they hated the fact that I knew this. They did cover from the angle he is indoctrinating innocent children with anti-Muslim rhetorics. Now, we continued in 19, and what happened in 19 was I was kind of fed up with the pace. There wasn't moving fast enough as to our collection of signatures. We needed 20,000. We had a few thousand. That's not nearly enough. So we had to up the ante, so to speak, and do more.
Signatures in order to have your party run.
In order to run for parliament, you need about 20,000 signatures, and we only had a few thousand. Now, those were difficult to get, but still, they're not nearly close to the goal. So I figured, well, you know, I'm kind of fed up with the intelligence and security service telling me that saying what I want to say is very dangerous. So maybe we should just say whatever the hell we want to say, and then that will be their problem. So that was kind of my, increasingly more my thoughts were that. And in January of this year, I had many meetings with the Intelligence and Security Service because they were aware that now Rasmus is more of a problem because he no longer listens to us. He does whatever the hell he wants to do, and that's a problem for us. And eventually I got a very happy guy to film a video and where he burned the Quran, and he said, this is the Quran. You may have been told it's a very bad, shitty book that says a lot of negative things about non-Muslims, about women, about gays, about democracy. And I have to tell you, everything you've been told about this is true. It's a terrible book, so I'm going to investigate, can it be used for anything good? As you may see, I'm freezing. It's January. It's very cold here in Denmark. But I have this book, and I also have some petrol, and I also have a match. So we'll do this little test to see, can it be used for something useful? And then a few minutes later, I'm no longer freezing so much. So yes, the Quran can in fact be used for something good. It's a great source of heat.
So that is the reason why Rasmus Paludan burns Qurans. And that is the reason why there was a lot of protests by Muslims in Sweden this week. Having met Rasmus Paludan, I'm not someone I would enjoy being around, to be honest, but I do like his boldness. And I just want you to understand that that is just because he thinks that the Quran is worthless and dangerous as an influence, he burns it. And just because he has that freedom, the Danish intelligence officers and he's constantly 24-hour protection. Constantly. The only time he wasn't under that protection is when he came to visit us. And that's that was something. It was something for him to be not protected. He wasn't exactly used to that, but then there were certain people who were present that he could have been considered still under protection, because those people that were at that meeting were intelligence and were highly trained. And let's just put it this way: if there was anybody going to cause any problems, they were going to be quickly taken out if they were there. I think we have a problem when we don't look at the deeper things. What's causing things like this? Rad, do you have any comments on that by chance? Or all right, guessing.
Yeah, actually, I do. I just had to find the right screen. Yeah, so I came in late, but I noticed you said that there were protests in Sweden. No, if by protest you mean radical Muslim riots,
Well,
then I
protesters,
would agree with you.
yeah, protest by burning cars and things like that. Yes,
Right, yeah.
it's
So mostly violent protests with the
violent.
final outcome.
I didn't say non-violent. Yeah, these are violent. These are roaring violent to the point where the police are getting so seriously damaged they don't know what to do.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. But yeah. So yeah, well, personally, I'm against burning the Quran, only because that's actually the proper way they're supposed to destroy the Quran. I like to use it, for different reasons, different methods. We still got to put the holes in the Quran with the shotgun. Eric Smith, I'm looking at you. We're gonna put little holes, big holes, and then one giant hole through it. That's
or David Woods, he uses the drill. It just goes.
Well, yeah, that's what Hartoon did. Yeah. So, yeah, we were talking about you, Eric. Yeah.
That's all right.
That's all right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we just. Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I'll just.
Well, no, I was just going to say that the goal this summer is to put some holes in the Quran with the shotgun. Little holes, big holes. And then one couple giant holes with the slugs.
We had actually discussed that.
Let's get this. Rad, you said something very important. It is the proper way to dispose of the Quran is to burn it. And the reason we know that is because what did Uthman do?
Burned it.
He burned the Qurans. So if the first, quote, rightly guided caliphs can burn the Quran, why can't anyone else? That's something I can't grasp.
I carried some stuff out of
the. Well, he didn't just burn a Quran. He burned all of the extant Qurans at the time, with the exception of the one that he had edited and put together. And you could put like hashtag worst editor of all time with Uthman also, because reading that jumbled up mess is as I said before, is penance trying to follow. And because there's no stories that make any sense. There's no stories that start or finish. Well, there's one, I think, is what they've come up with. But everything else is just a jumbled up mess.
Well, they still are. I mean, as a whole, the Quran is not clear in anything that I can think of.
Now, does this guy, he said that he does it purposely to provoke.
Yeah.
And the purpose of provoking is to do what?
Is to bring attention to, if you let Islam stay in Denmark, or if you let Islam stay in Europe, you're allowing your freedom of speech to be taken away. That's his reasoning and his purpose. Okay,
to an extent, he's right. I've said this. I think I alluded to this last week on the show. We had that guy Terry Jones, the pastor Terry Jones.
Yeah,
said that he was going to do it, and I had my pastor ask me about that, if I thought that was the right thing to do, and whether it's the right thing to do or not, that for me is up to the individual. I personally would not go out to purposely offend somebody just to make a point. However, and I say however, and we put a comma after that, of course, however, comma, I would say that if that doing something like that, and you're a Muslim, and we spoke about this before, and you know that is the type of response that they are trying to get from you, and you still act out violently. And the reason why the guy is doing it is to purposely demonstrate to people who might not be as well versed or understand how repressive this ideology can be to non-believers. If that enlightens other people, I can see why people would want to do that, and how that could be a good idea. But again, I do not believe that purposely offending somebody, deeply offending somebody. You can offend people. People get offended all the time. Like Will Smith got his panties in a bunch because the guy's talking about his wife's bald head or whatever. But to offend somebody to the point to where they're going to want to kill you, that's a different question. And then again, that also begs the question: how far? I mean, how much does it take in order to wake up a country from its slumber, and how perilously close they are to losing rights if this ideology becomes a majority, or it doesn't even have to become a majority. I mean, look at the Nazis. The Nazis weren't a majority when they came to power. You don't have to be a majority. When you get a vocal enough minority to squelch to silence you,
that's exactly what happened. Yes, that is exactly what happened. And that's so. Even still, this is the thing that people need to think about, and that it was Rasmussen's purpose to cause a demonstration to show, look, these people, he wasn't even in those places where the riots broke out. It was just said that he would show up and burn a Quran. Some of those places he wasn't even scheduled to go to, and it was just said he's going to burn a Quran, and they just went wild. So this is something to think about. I mean, he's just the thought of someone who's not Muslim burning a Quran. I mentioned in my last book that someone had torn up a Quran and put some of it in the toilet and used some of it as toilet paper. And the people all over Germany and Turkey people in Turkey got all upset. They called it Islamophobia, but it turned out that a Muslim did this. And then all of a sudden it's quietly disappeared.
Well, it's just that when you go looking for hate crimes in the United, I mean, this is the problem. If there was so many hate crimes, if the United, and I'm just kind of using the United States as an illustration, if we have such a racial, we have such a huge racism problem in the United States, you would not have to manufacture hate crimes. You wouldn't have to go Jesse Smollett and manufacture hate crimes in order to raise awareness for them. You would think that you would have enough evidence, obvious evidence, without having to get people to do this. And this is exactly the same thing. You don't have this amount of hatred towards Muslim individuals as they want you to think that there is. But there is a hatred towards the ideology that teaches people to repress the rights of other people and to take away those rights, whether it's freedom of speech, or freedom of religion, freedom of expression, the basic human rights that we enjoy here in the West.
I'm not in agreement with burning the Quran. Also, I won't say I wouldn't have I won't say, if I personally thought about it, I might do it. Yeah, I have a real issue with destroying books. I'd rather see people educated by what's contained in the book. If you actually read the Quran, that's actually more important. If you're a Muslim, if you actually read the Quran and you understand the words in the Quran, you will leave Islam. So, yes, I'd rather have you read it than burn it. That's my thoughts. And I tried to express my thoughts to Paladin when I saw him, but didn't go very far. As you can see.
Well, I agree with his premise that in doing so, it provides a great illustration of an example of what these people believe and how perilous your own civil rights are in a country that, I mean, take the United States, for example. You burn an American flag. To me, that's one of the most offensive things that you can do against our country. However, I will defend your right to do that. I would defend your right if that's what you want to express, a bitter, visceral hatred towards your country. I will defend. I'll defend your right to the death to do that, to say what you believe, even if I disagree with it. And this is the dichotomy that we're kind of stuck here in the West, is that if you repress the free speech of one person, then you have to be accepting to suppress the free speech of somebody else. Now, the deal with the burning the flag, I said, I always used to tell my students, I said, if you want to burn the American flag, I have no problem with you doing that. You can go ahead and do that. The only thing I would ask is that you just wrap yourself up when you do it.
And so in the United States, there is a test to find out if something is dangerous when you say it. And what is that test, Eric? It is
It's in case law. I'm not sure which
yeah,
what
it's
case
the
it is.
oh, now I'm losing my train of thought. There's a test, and it's it's case law now. Now
You're talking about you're talking about a Supreme Court case that
yes.
Okay.
The clear and present danger test. Is there a clear and present danger from the person's words or their message? And that test is supposed to decide if something is dangerous to be said. Now, if you allow the Quran to be taught, I would be willing to state that wherever the Quran is taught, there is a clear and present danger. If you allow...
But that's only if Muslims believe it. The problem is, I would say the good thing is, but the problem from a religious standpoint is that Muslims really don't believe that Quran. At least Westernized Muslims don't. They have to jump over backwards and come up with weird interpretations and totally, completely weird-ass translations.
I was in a clubhouse room this afternoon where I brought this up, where there was a Muslim, Milos was questioning this. I felt kind of bad because the guy ended up leaving, but Milos is questioning this guy about Aisha. Of course, he goes, "Well, why do you have to go after Aisha? Why do people always have to talk about her? I mean, why do you guys always have to bring up, her age and Muhammad's age at the time?" And Milos was just going after this guy. And I finally just got tired of it. And I said, Milos, I tell you what, I'm going to take this. I'm taking this guy's side. I'm just going to tell you straight up. I take this guy's side. And the reason why I'm taking this guy's side is he is so offended at what Muhammad did to Aisha. He has more morality than his prophet did. And the guy just he left the room immediately after I said that. This guy has more morals than his prophet did. And then and this is exactly what Rad is alluding to. A lot of these guys read the Quran and they're absolutely repulsed by some of the things that it teaches about how to teach or treat non-Muslims. And in the Hadith literature also, how we're supposed to be treated. And they're repulsed by that. Why? Because they're brought up in a Western society with one of the foundational principles, religious principles of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, respecting your fellow man. They don't have that. You don't have that in the Quran. So what they have to do is they have to, just as Rad says, you have to Westernize these teachings, because if you don't, then these teachings are not going to be assimilated into or accommodated at all into Western society. So you must figure out a way to assimilate them and Westernize them and finesse them so as to the point where they're no longer true, they're no longer coherent. And this is what we're going to be talking about on Sunday's show, because last week Danny Davis was in Kenny Bomer's panel, and they're trying to tell Danny that Islam does not allow Muslim men to beat their wives. They're trying to use some Western translation of the Quran or whatever. I'm not going to go back.
I actually know what they're citing. They're saying you're only allowed to use a toothbrush to beat your wife with, and that Hadith is not even Sahih.
I don't know, but the paper that they cite is right here. This is the paper that they cited. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you went and looked it up?
Oh yeah. Oh, come on, Brad. You know me. I'm gonna print this sucker off, and I'm gonna go through this line by line.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? You guys reminded me. So yeah, he's always quoting the clear Quran, right? And I just looked it up. It seems like it's a Quran written in for children, for people who have like a 5th or 6th grade reading level.
No. It's going to be lower. It's going to be lower. Okay. So the Quran in general, I would say, is actually written to maybe a 7th or 8th grader. But the Quran you're talking about would be written to a 3rd or 4th grader.
Right.
Maybe
either way, it's
fourth.
for children. Either way, it's for people who have a limited understanding of English, man. I'm just looking this up, dude, and it's just totally funny. But more research needs to be done. But either way, yeah. So, but anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. That's funny.
Yeah, and this is from a special ed teacher who that was part of my job, is to understand the grade level of material so I could adapt it to other people to lower grades. You can actually easily measure some of this by the amount of one syllable words. And there's an awful lot. There's an awful lot of those in the Quran. And you can take a look and test me out on that. You'll have a good laugh. Hey, Boyd, do you want to join us? I can have you join us. All right. I'm just going to send an invite. Yeah, down. We have, I have one more thing I think would be interesting to share here. I'm going to see if Boyd wants to join us. I've been working on a small topic because I saw an article in Memory, and I'm going to share my screen in just a second here. Memory.org did this incredible piece. I'm just, like I said, I'm going to share my screen. And I see that he's basically talking about a marriage between Ramadan and Jihad. So I saw this and I just, I just had to say something. So let me take it. If you go to memory.org, you'll see an article titled Prominent Salafi Cleric. And let me just get to there for myself. And okay. Prominent Salafi cleric Ali al-Salabi, major Islamic conquest took place during Ramadan. Muslim conquest of Iberian Peninsula was natural outcome of Muslim strategy during invasions. So what is he doing? He's talking about, this is normal during Ramadan. Jihad is normal during Ramadan. Isn't that something we've been telling people for decades? It seems like, yeah. So this was on April 12th. He wrote an article on the website of the Qatar and Turkey-backed International Union of Muslim Scholars, IUMS, which is a Muslim Brotherhood organization. He wrote an article titled The Islamic Conquest of Al-Andalus was part of victories attained during Ramadan. Ali al-Salabi is a prominent Libyan Salafi cleric and an IUMS member associated and emphasized the major Islamic conquest took place during the month of Ramadan. I just want to read some of the pieces here. And I sat there and I listened to this. All right. So he actually emphasized a few things. So I'm going to read this and I'll go back to this slide in just a second. He wrote his piece has a subtitle: The Battle of Badr, the Conquest of Mecca, and the Battle of Guadalete are three major battles that took place during the month of Ramadan. He writes, Ramadan is known as the month of conquest that changed the course of Islam and advanced it tremendously, such as the Battle of Badr, the Conquest of Mecca. The Battle of Badr was an official declaration of the establishment of the new state of Islam. The Conquest of Mecca, a few years later, however, was the major victory for the Islamic State against those who waged wars against it for 20 years. The people of Mecca and their allies, after the conquest of Mecca, people converted to Islam en masse. Also, among the Muslim victories which took place during the month of Ramadan was the Battle of Guadalete, after which Muslims took over Al-Andalus, which is Spain. A chapter of oppression and tyranny ended, and a new chapter of advancement and civilization started. I suggest that you pay more attention to the history of Spain to learn the real truth behind that. So when I started looking this, I started looking a little bit more at that. So we look at the Battle of Badr. This is the second year after the Hijrah. It's supposed to be the first claimed victory of Muhammad's raiders. I mean, they weren't much more than raiders. According to Dr. Muhammad Hamdullah, there were 300 some against 900 to 1,000 men. And when we actually do some reading on this, there's not even you can't tell how many men you are. You want to know why? because the people that Muhammad had interviewed to find out how many men there were, they didn't know how to count that high. They didn't know how to estimate that high. So all he did was supposedly ask, how many camels did they eat a night? And supposedly that told him there was 900 to 1,000 men, with them. And, he talked about, okay, they ate 9 camels a day or somewhere around that. And you're like, really? Okay. It's like, maybe.
Isn't a camel haram according to the Levitical law?
Split hoofs. Good question.
Yeah, it's an abomination to eat it. Which
but
is
not
kind of
according to
weird.
Muslims.
I
Again,
know,
violating.
But Muslims do worse because they sacrifice the abomination to what they believe is God. I mean, think about it. That'd be like going into, well, they don't go into the temple, but it would be like a Jew sacrificing a pig, to Yahweh. You know what I mean? This is how abominable they are. They like I said, they have no consistency even in their own consistency. They're seriously, yeah, we don't call it the Ramadan Bombathon for nothing, dude. I mean, this is when these dudes. I mean, yeah, dude. Think of, I'm gonna tell you a funny true story, real quick. Funny true story. So this dude that works at the 7-Eleven where I shop, he's always really nice older guy. I actually interrupted a strong arm robbery, so he was like loving me for like ever, calling me the big boss and doing the whole salam to me and everything. But I thought he was a Hindu. I didn't think he was Muslim. Well, I go in the other day, and he's all pissed off, angry, yelling and screaming, da 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 da. And I was just kind of goofing with him a little bit, and he's yelling at me. I'm like, hey, what's up, brother? And I was like, oh, it's because they always got to tell you, it's Ramadan and I'm fasting. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, aren't you supposed to be kind of humble? Dude, they never are humble. Think about it. They are so angry and so miserable, and it's like, dude, yeah, it's going to piss you off, dude. You're going to be ready for a fight, always for a fight. You're hungry and irritable. You know what I mean? Seriously, these people, are just, yeah, I mean, their whole thing is stupid. I'm sorry.
So, following, I love a lot of what Eric's been sharing about, it was Mecca real. So I'm reading along, and I have, this is a book I actually recommend. I'm just gonna switch out of this for a second. It's called The Battle of the Prophets, Prophet Muhammad, and I recommend this book by Dr. Muhammad Hamidullah. Now, let me tell you why I recommend it, and this may surprise you. This book actually provides questions about some of the history. And one of the things he mentions is that people weren't allowed to visit Badr until there was a paved road.
Why was that? Why is that?
That's a question I have. Well, because maybe Badr wasn't there. When you actually look at some of this, I mean, that's the stuff that makes sense to me. I mean, it's in this book, and I sat there like when I'm reading it, like, oh.
I wonder,
that would follow suit with some.
Do they have any archaeological digs there? Did they have any type of? Have they brought that up? Whether or not it did exist in the 7th century or not?
You're seeing here, this is supposed to be where they buried the martyrs. This area here, they buried the martyrs where they fell that day. So you would think they should easily be able to find stuff there. When you read some of this stuff, you have to go back and ask those questions. So that's all in the Battle of Badr. Now I went to look at the Battle of Mecca, the conquest. I'm again, if Mecca didn't exist, this whole story is phooey. I mean, it's just is. But so here's what I had on this. Muhammad was supposed to have taken 10,000 men towards Mecca to fight his own people, the Quraysh. Now, this is the important thing people forget. This was the treason the Quraysh feared. And this is why they sought to kill him the night he left. This is the very act of treason they feared. So Muhammad just proved they were right of accusing him of treason. I mean, some guy decides to come back and kill you while you're sleeping in your bed. Do you think it's better to get him before he gets you when you know he's going to come back and try to kill you while you're sleeping? That's something to think about. It was violent, and I say it was violent if Mecca did exist, because he did go in and he did send people to do what? Execute anyone who resisted, anyone who was not in their houses hiding. I mean, he those were the choices you had. And if you insulted Muhammad, he sent special people to find you and kill you. And this is the thing that people forget also. Now, for this non-violent thing, it says the warriors were not sated. They wanted booty and blood. Thus, all of a sudden, they're sent off to Taif to commit more acts of war because they didn't get enough. Think about it. I mean, it's if Mecca existed, and I'm having.
There's no evidence for it. There's no evidence for it.
Yes.
No evidence. No 7th century evidence for it at all. There's nothing. There's nothing from archaeology. There's no mention of Mecca by name in any manuscripts that are dated in the 7th century or predate the 7th century. There are no inscriptions on any rocks. It's not located on any maps. It's like a black hole. It's a 7th century black hole. There's nothing there.
Here's another way to look at this.
Yep.
Okay, so this is supposed to have taken place in Ramadan, year 8 after the Hijrah, right? But they won their first battle in year 2. Here's the problem. You can't build an army of 10,000. So 10,000 within 6 years. It's just not going to happen. And these were supposed to be tribes of people, pretty much nomadic. So this also is a historical issue. Now, the next one I have is the Battle of Guadalupe.
Hey, can I just add something?
Yes.
Address something real quick. We were talking about camels.
Yes.
And eating them.
Yes. Oh, that's for this one. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so Leviticus chapter 11, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, say to the Israelites, of all the animals that live on the land, these are the ones that you may eat. You may eat any animals that has a divided hoof and that chews the cud. So that would be like a cow has a divided hoof, chews the cud. There are some that only chew the cud or only have a divided hoof, but you must not eat them. Period. Next word. The camel, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is ceremonially unclean for you.
Yes.
Verse 5, the hyrax, though it chews the cud. Okay. 6, the rabbit. They can't have any rabbits. And Muhammad was given a rabbit, ate a rabbit. The rabbit, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hood. And then verse 7, the pig. So the only one out of there that they will not eat is the pig, and they're going to claim that they're self-righteous because they don't eat pork, even though they'll eat 3 of the 4 animals that from the very same chapter, from the very same verses passage in the Bible that they claim is that inspired the dietary habits of Muslims. It's absolutely ridiculous and hypocritical for them to say such a thing.
Not only that, but you think about it, the pig is much more tastier than the camel.
Oh my gosh. Pork ribs. I had pork ribs last night, and okay, never mind. I'm not gonna they were absolutely delicious.
I have to admit, I'm there with you. I love a good pig roast. Let's get into this Battle of Guadalupe. Again, this is a Ramadan battle that this man is bragging about. Funny thing about this. I would think that they would have this down, but they're not sure of the exact year, 711 or 712. And this is the first major victory of the Umayyads' conquest of Spain. Now, that's the claim. However, this is after a series of attacks. and these are by the Berbers. The Berbers make several attacks. These are North Africans that come and they attack along the coastline, like they're pirates. Okay, they're basically attacking the coastline as pirates, and that's how you have to think of them. And who was the first enemy, Eric, of the United States? The first of the
Barbary
Congressional United
pirates.
States?
Barbary pirates.
Yeah, these are
Yep.
okay. So Spain had this same enemy at this time, that before the United States is even created, that they're dealing with pretty much the same thing. And it's a bloody battle. Again, it comes after several raids by the Berbers along the Iberian coastline. Those raids and the battle come during and pretty much near the end of a civil war. So they claim there's this great conquest and they give Allah all the credit, but they came and they did this battle when they knew Spain was weak.
I just want to point out that it took the Spaniards over what, I don't know, 400 or 500 years to finally throw the Moors out of Spain.
Yes.
For the most part. The fledgling United States of America with a couple hundred Marines took them down right quick. Just like when we ran through Iraq, and Afghanistan until we surrendered and moved away. But so it just goes to show you, Europeans, they're just not good at fighting the Muslims. They got to leave it up to us Americans. But
part of the problem with these battles in Spain was the fact that some of the Christians were building alliances with the Muslims to settle scores on other Christians.
Exactly.
And in doing so, it crippled they without realizing what it would eventually lead to. They just thought that these guys were, willing pawns in their little game, and it turns around that they're the ones that eventually got played. Yeah, they're the ones that the pawns. They're the ones that got played on.
And that is extremely important. Now, I don't think I have another slide. Just make sure. I don't think I have another. Yeah, I'm out of slides for that. I put those up again because here we had an article bragging about the importance of jihad in Ramadan, and written, and published this past week. and these guys talk about, the conquest of Al-Andalus was a natural outcome of the strategy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was all a pure luck thing for them. They didn't have a chance otherwise. They came at a time of civil war. They came after playing people on their, again, there's a series of things that actually happened. That battle gets the highlight, but the truth is there were several battles beforehand, and it wasn't just that one battle. It was a series of battles that went before that. So that's where I thought that was important, just to say, look, here they are highlighting, it's Ramadan. Here they are highlighting jihad is normal. So why is anybody giving us a hard time about saying things like Ramadan, Bamathon?
One of the main reasons when we start talking about battles and being able to be successful during this time, a lot of people don't realize is how pathetically weakened the Byzantine and the Persian empires had become by the time that in 632, when Muhammad dies and Umar and Uthman, start walking through North Africa and all the way east into the Hindu Kush. Because these empires that were there, that were these fortifications against the expansion of any type of Arab advancement, no longer had any ability to defend themselves against this. And the same thing is true in the western part of the Roman Empire at that time, is that it was said they had all become so weak and become sheltered. These guys were able to walk right in. So when we start talking about, these Arabs had some sort of, special war making abilities that the Europeans had or did not have, is really not true. Now, there were some technologies that they were able to employ that enabled them to make these advances. For example, the cimeter and the ability to ride on horses eventually made them very formidable opponents against European warriors. There was a special type of bow that they would use their legs to draw with. That I can't remember where that was first employed, but they were able to use new technologies. But the fact is that they were never tacticians.
Exactly.
To defeat Western empires.
If you really want to find the truth on that, I pick up some Altaberries, you'll see that they really aren't tacticians. It's some of it you'll sit there and laugh at while you're reading, because they don't generally do the. I mean, they enter the. I will never stop laughing at their first war, their first exploration onto the water. The desert people get in a ship, and the Caliph says, "Oh, you're not allowed to go." I mean, he's talking about the people aren't allowed to go on the boat unless the guy who's leading them takes his entire family, just in case the boat sinks.
Well, there's actually more to that story. It was haram. It was haram. No, it was haram for the longest time for them to build a navy. Okay, yes. And they were getting creamed, dude, because that's why Caesarea, whatever it's called, held out for so long, because they were constantly getting supplied, from the Mediterranean, because they could only surround them on like 2 sides or 3 sides, and they had the ocean. And they're asking, shouldn't we have a navy? And the answer was no. Muhammad didn't have a navy. Allah's apostle didn't have a navy, so it is haram. Well, then they finally figured out, wait a second, we're out here in the desert for like 3 years, I think the siege went on. And then finally they captured some pirates. We'll go figure. They captured some pirates washed ashore or something like that. And they captured them. And they're like, yeah, teach us how to build a boat.
Well, this one they actually
hired pirates,
yeah. This one they captured the boat, and they get on, and that's probably more of the truth, that they had some pirates or somebody behind it that was willing to get in. This is these stories that are out there. Here's the funny thing: New York State does not teach the truth about jihad, but the books I'm referencing, the Altaberry series, you want to know who publishes it? The State University of New York. SUNY Press.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But we're not allowed to tell the truth to high school students, but they publish it in the university press.
Wait. So you're not allowed to teach the high school students, but you can teach the 5th graders that, boys are girls and girls are boys, and, sometimes.
Oh, there was a bit of good news on that topic. What was it? There was it was the governor of Florida saying, basically, no, you're not going to do that here. And then he took it a step farther this week. The lawmakers in Florida took a step farther. In fact, today, I believe it's today, they passed, or it's up for law, that Disney will no longer be allowed to govern itself, and they will have to start paying some exorbitant taxes.
No kidding.
To who? To who? Who are they paying the tax?
To the state.
Okay, no. This was the best day ever out of a 2 week of best. First, it started out Elon Musk buying Twitter. Drove them crazy. Okay. He's still buying.
Wait. Stop. He bought the whole thing?
He's going to. They did he's going ahead. They did the poison pill, so they diluted the stock. It's like, fine, I got plenty of other billionaire friends. We can buy it all up. So okay. Even Jack Dorsey is coming out against the board saying, no, you people are stupid. I, as a Twitter shareholder now, I'm going to be involved in a class action lawsuit because they're costing me money. They did not put this up to a vote. You know what I mean? Okay, I bought my shares at $42 a share. He's offering $56. That sounds good to me. I'll sell my 5 shares in the stock or whatever it is. But anyway, no. So that starts out with that, and then today, the Obamas get canceled from Spotify. CNN Plus is canceled after
CNN
a
Plus
month.
was canceled today.
Yeah, CNN Plus is canceled today. And then there's a clip of it. Okay, it is totally hysterical. This happened today. Okay, where I was on MSNBC. One of the commentators that were talking about, because they're talking about the bill, that was going to basically defund Disney. Okay, Disney World. Okay, they're like, that's not going to pass. I have a hard time seeing the state legislators passing that. And they're going on this segment, and all of a sudden, one of the news reporters or one of the reporters has to tell her, "Oh, by the way, the bill just passed."
It went through quickly.
Did you see the video? Did you see the video? All the lefty Democrats, they're all screaming and hollering, yelling. They actually forgot to vote. Some of them did. They're like, "Wait, I didn't vote." It was a good 2 weeks.
I saw that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah." But let's mention one more thing about this Ramadan Jihad thing going on. And I'm going to share my screen for this. This is the sadness that's happened in. Let me get to the right screen here. Sorry. The sadness that's happening in Nigeria, and let me get to that one. Okay. Gunmen killed more than 100 in Nigeria's north. So you can get this off dailybreeze.com. Gunmen kill more than 100 in Nigeria's north, say survivors. Believe it or not, this is by Associated Press. Of course, they don't mention who was killed specifically. It came out April 12th, so it's a little bit behind getting out to us. Armed gang has killed more than 100 people in a remote part of North Nigeria. The attackers targeted 4 villages in Kanama area, Plateau State, the most recent in a series of violent attacks in Nigeria's north. Such attacks in Nigeria's north region have become frequent, especially between Fulani herdsmen, basically Muslims, who are mostly cattle herders in Christian communities. Oh, so again, they barely mention that these are Christians that are being attacked.
So you're saying this is just an average weekend in Chicago then?
Yes.
Well, in Chicago, it's a free for all, more or less. That's the honest truth of it. And here's the thing, and I'll say, if Black Lives Matter really matter to Black men and women who want to support Black Lives Matter, why aren't they out there stopping the majority of the shooters, who unfortunately tend to be Black people killing Black people?
Yes, black on black.
It is black on black crime that is the majority of this. And if Black Lives Matter is really an operation that has any caring whatsoever, it will stand up against black crime on black people. And it doesn't. And that's my thought. If life really matters to Black Lives Matter, if human life really matters, it doesn't matter who does the crime. It's time to stand up and say, this isn't acceptable. But they can't do that, especially after spending all those millions of dollars on their residences. Yeah,
I think it's with that, it's being told that it is your fault that these crimes are happening, and it's not being accepting of that type of criticism. And this is the bottom line. And let's just cut to the chase. The reason why there's so much crime and so much violent crime is because of the dissolution of the family unit. When the majority of overwhelming majority of these children are raised in single parent homes without a father, without that security. So if you're raised without a father and without that security, you become more defensive. You become more apt to use violence to protect yourself and that what you do have, and it perpetuates itself into a cycle. And it's unfortunate, but until people are able to come to this realization that in order to have a sense of security as a child and grow up as a child and into a man and pass that ability to do what's right as a father, it's going to continue. And that is we can sit here and say, okay, we can blame socioeconomic status, we can blame education, we can blame all of these things all day long, but until you get to the root cause, and this is what BLM stands against, is the nuclear family. It was in their when the website was in
their it was in their mission statement, and
right, they wanted to get away from the
goals,
father, the
that
father
was
figure
their
in the family.
objectives and goals, to get away from the nuclear family.
Right. So when you have that as a mission statement, all you're doing is perpetuating the problem. You're not fixing the root cause of the problem. A two-parent family, a two-parent home is not always best, but the overwhelming majority of the time is best. Now, that's not to say that single women cannot raise children themselves and do a good job of. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying, on average, if we want to sit here and look at statistically, which children perform better academically, perform better socioeconomically, stay out of trouble and do not go to jail or go to prison.
And by the way, Eric, we're talking about all races. We're not talking about just black people, are we?
Right. No, this is not a racial thing. This is just, they've turned it into a racial thing, but this is not a racial thing. This is a cultural thing. And when your culture teaches you that the father is not necessary in raising children, it is damaging that culture. And unfortunately, this has permeated into the African American community in our country, where you have 7 out of 10 children born today are born without a father in the home. And that just cannot expect as a whole. I taught all kinds of kids that had single parents that were white, black, Hispanic, whatever, and they were fantastic kids, and the parents were fantastic people. But as a whole, you can't expect a successful culture to flourish and thrive unless you have that two parents in the home raising those kids, both of them providing that security and that differing parental type rearing, where you have the father, because I was the hammer, you're going to do this, and the mom, she would yell, the queen would yell at him, but
nurturing character, yeah.
But it was you would get two different ends of it. Whereas
the mother gives the grace. Yeah, the mother gives the grace, the father gives the law, and the mother comes alongside and says, well, this is why dad had to do this, gives the mercy and grace. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has proven to work. And I'm sorry to get us off topic on
well,
that.
It's not, I don't see that as totally
it's so sad. It just breaks my heart to see those thousands of young men, literally thousands of young men, killed every single year because it has gotten so violent in these cities. And to sit there and say, well, to say, well, it's black on black crime, it is, and it tears your guts out. And when you sit there and you point at the root cause of it, they tell you to sit down and shut up.
And here's another thing that goes along that topic. These are cities that we're talking about where these high crimes are places where people are not allowed to own guns. The restrictions on gun ownership are severe. And who do they affect the most? Yes, and I'll say it. It is the black person. These restrictions affect the black person or those people who live in those cities. And the claim is that the majority of the people that live in these areas are black. Well, if I accept that, I'm saying that you have restricted the black person from owning legally owning.
You're turning them into a criminal for wanting to protect their family.
Yeah.
To do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. You're criminalizing the behavior that they could use to protect their family.
Let them legally own guns so they can protect their families. Experiments have been done to prove that gun ownership does lower crime, and these have been done for decades. So I think it's time that Chicago starts to wake up, encourage gun ownership and allow it. And, maybe less people would try to rob or steal or whatever crimes they're trying to commit if they know someone else is just going to have it be packing. And,
right.
That's the unfortunate truth that there is. It is like the Wild West when you can't trust when you're walking down the street, and then you're not legally allowed to own something to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. That's an issue. A lot of what this show talks about, it's a Christian news show, and what Eric's bringing up is incredibly important to Christians. Two-parent families are the best, and I say that here I am, a man who's divorced, and divorce is a horrible thing. I wish it was nothing but a dirty word, but the truth is, it is horrible. Who does it hurt the most? It's not the mommy and the daddy, it's the kids. And nothing hurts the kids worse than that dirty word called divorce. Now, the other thing that affects the kids is when dad is never involved or the mom is not involved. The single parent home as a whole is damaging. I worked with, working in high school, we used to have a daycare in the school. Reason why they took the daycare out. Girls were going down, young girls were going down to the daycare and oohing and eyeing over the baby outfits and saying they wanted a baby too. Guess what? They learned from the mothers that were there that if you have a baby, the state will pay for you to move out of your parents' house. So we found out, and this is the reason why the daycares were removed from the public schools in my city, because they actually created more single parent homes.
Higher demand for children. Yeah.
Yes. So, and you know, you could hear the conversations, and the girls would say, I just want someone to love me. And they didn't understand that babies don't know how to love. You have to teach them how to love. Love is taught by how you react to the times they cry, the times they want to be changed, the times they want to eat, and it go on and on and on and on. Love is something that is freely given first, and you can't learn it without receiving. And as a Christian show, that is the stuff you get from God. That this love from Jesus is overpowering, and there's nothing better. So, you know, I would usually show my advertisement at the end of, you know, to encourage you to buy my books, but that's the only thing I'm going to do is encourage people. If you want to support this as a ministry, please do go. I have 8 devotionals I'm trying to get done and out now. I have I'm also putting out a daily devotional, and I sending it out to I know Eric's been getting them now, and my hope is to, you know, one of the goals of my ministry in doing this news thing and doing the devotionals, I feel a great need to encourage others to grow in Christ. So if you're interested and you want to get in on that, it's the reason why I start my show with a reading of the scripture. My goal is to encourage people to grow in Christ. Getting the news out is important. Primarily, you want to know the reason why? It's because the news doesn't do it anymore. They don't tell us the truth. So people like us have to do this. If I could just spend my time encouraging others in Christ, I would do that. But we don't have a choice anymore. We have to get the truth out. We have to fight to do that, because you can't always find the truth. You have to go looking for it. And that's part of why I am a research writer. I love doing research. I know Eric loves doing research. Rad loves doing research. Connie, I'm guessing, has a love. Seconds. There's a lot of truth in seeking these things.
Yes.
When you start to find the truth, don't give up. Keep fighting for it. If you want to join and you want to get in on this devotional thing, just go to paulsutliff.com. There's a place on the bottom where you can send me a message. Please go there and just send me your email and let me know that you're interested in being on the devotional list. I'm going to say good night to everybody. Thank you for joining, Eric. Any last words?
Another great show, Paul.
Connie, any last words? Oh. Red?
No, sir. Just keep on doing what you're doing, brother. I support you, sir.
Yeah.
And your
last
book still
words.
makes me pissed off.
Yeah.
And your videos.
Yeah.
Sorry,
last words. Yeah. Last words is let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon, really quick.
Woo-hoo.
I'm just saying. Okay.
Yeah. This week, did anybody see? They had a couple things where Biden was. He turned around and he was shaking hands with nobody.
Yeah. Oh no, the best, the Easter Bunny.
The Easter Bunny had to guide him around.
I'm like, you have got to be kidding. Did you hear about Saudi Arabia?
What
Arabia told them to go kiss their ass.
Oh yes,
Saudi
I saw
Arabia.
that.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia told them, no, get out of here. I guess they were shouting. So no, get out of here. We're not raising the oil. No, screw you. Get out of here. They won't even answer. This dude, and then actually come out. Okay, so Biden, Biden has an excuse. He's a senile old man. Okay, all right. Kamala is worse. She just talks word salad, and she's not senile. You know, the time is now, which is the time every day is now to do what we're doing, which is now, and we got to do that every day. What the hell are you talking about? And you got Nancy Pelosi out there. I'm going to recite a poem. She's tried to do this at the press conference. I'm going to recite a poem from Bono. It's beautiful. It talks about Ukraine. And then
these are the three highest ranking people in our government.
Yes.
See,
we
you
are
want to
so
know what the wrath of
screwed. We are
God
so
looks like?
screwed.
And this is why people need to vote. This is why you need to get out and vote. This is why our Congress should enact Amendment 25 on the first three people.
All three of them.
All three.
No, seriously, no. This is brilliant of Biden. Okay, see, this is what screwed Trump. Trump picked the wrong person for vice president. He picked someone that was competent. He picked someone that could just take over, probably even do a better job than he did. Right? Okay, something stable. No, so they fine. Get rid of Trump. They get Pence. No big deal, right? No. Okay, he picks Kamala. Like, yeah, you get rid of me. Look what you get, dude.
That was the whole reasoning behind Obama picking Biden. That was the whole reason there.
Exactly. And then you got Nancy just waiting and went, dude, I swear, dude, have you looked how she looks at Biden or when she talks about? I swear she's like a giddy schoolgirl. I swear that they're having sex, and that is gross. That is disgusting. But no, she's like totally in love with him. Oh, he's the best man. We are honored to have you here with your prestigious, your intellect. Oh, you are so great. Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe. Seriously. It is horrible.
And that's what we're left with. And this is why we do what we do, people. We've got to keep letting people know what's going on. Thank you all for joining us. God bless. We'll see you soon.
All right. God bless.